Bayou Time Sports is brought to you by Terrible General Health System's Community Sports Institute in conjunction with Barker Honda.
All right, welcome to Bayou Time Sports. I'm Martin False and joined once again by Stan the Man. And Stan, good to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this is that time of year again where you shine and everybody shines and the inductees into the Athletic Hall of Fame shine. And I'm looking at these 6 pictures. Star-studded group again this year, right?
Very much a star-studded group, and I'll go back to what you said when you opened up and, shining. I don't know about that, but I am glad that we certainly get to represent these guys and make sure that their legacy kind of lives on. It's a labor of love. Sometimes it's a little bit more labor than love. Sometimes a little bit more love than labor. But yeah, 6 years of doing this, 6 inductees going in, and quite honestly, Martin, this could have been our first class. You get into a situation where we knew with 6 going in each year, it would take quite some time before somebody started going, wait a minute, that could have gone in the very first time y'all did this. So again, I think we have a group just like that.
But isn't that the great part about this is the fact that as you get into these later years, you still got a group that's going to draw a lot of people.
Absolutely. I agree. Not only that, I think the biggest thrill for me is if somebody comes up and says, hey, and I'm not going to give away any of the names we have going in this year, but if, hey, I saw what John Doe was getting in. I didn't even know who that guy was. I didn't know he played pro ball for this many years. I didn't know he was a great bowler or whatever the case may be. Those are the ones I think that I enjoy the most because we sort of bringing back a little bit of history, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to preserve history.
Yeah, you made a good point. As I'm looking at this list, I can honestly say there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I knew 4 of the 6. I did not know Robert Brunet, and I never heard of Thomas Ski Roussel, and I grew up in the sports world. So that goes to show you they were a little before my time.
I'm with you, though.
But it's an educational thing. So the great thing about what y'all do here, we get to relive somebody's past, and they get to relive it.
I agree. Hey, listen, I'm with you. When you said that, I was thinking to myself, we're about the same that I've heard of these guys. Of course, you and I kind of grew up with Troy Johnson, so we always knew Troy. We heard of Candies and Hughes, and you were mentioning before we came on air how much you had remembered what a great drag racing team that was. Everybody else, I was kind of like, I knew who Art Cantrell was, but I didn't know the extent of him, actually leaving LaRose and going to Biloxi and all the story that was behind it. Bob Brunet, just real quick story. The only thing I remember about Bob Brunet is when we were kids, and you may not have had this, but I did, it's that electronic football game where you put the little guy and you turn on vibrate. And I
loved it.
I got one probably in about 1970. My parents got it for Christmas. I'll never forget. And it was made by the NFL. So all along the side, it had NFL stars. And it had 2 Washington Redskins on it at that time, obviously the Redskins. And one was a guy named Chris Handberger, who was a linebacker. And obviously that name, being a kid, always made me giggle because his last name was Handberger. Right. The other one was Bob Brunet.
Really?
And my dad would tell me, being a guy who grew up in Terrebonne Parish, my dad would say, that guy grew up right there in LaRose, right across the way. As a crow flies probably 10, 15 miles.
And if you look at his picture, he looks a little bit like Fess Parker.
Yes. Now, he is a tough one. He was a tough one. Yeah, just a great class going in. And it's
then
nice.
Leonard Hughes, I remember as a kid driving down Barrel Street and seeing that Candies and Hughes race car right there across from the VFW on the little side street. I don't know the name of it, but that was big for us as a kid.
Yeah, to think that, in like 68 through 75, his team was the fastest drag racing team, except for those guys who race those cars out on the salt flats over in Salt Lake City. He was the fastest guy in the world, and he was from right here in Houma. So for us not to preserve that kind of history, that would be a shame.
That was so when we'd see the Candies and Hughes, I'd always think of Bill Farnoff and the Blue Angels and all of it. It brought back so many memories. But let's give the 6 names. I'm going to let you introduce them, and then in the next segments, we're going to start isolating each one.
Very good. You mentioned it, Bob Brunet, and we'll go in alphabetical order by last name. Bob Brunet grew up in LaRose, went to LaRose High School, a 1963 graduate of LaRose. He was actually a backup on that football team where his junior year he was only a manager. But in his senior year, they ran short of people. He stepped up, got looked at by a guy from Louisiana Tech, goes on to Tech, has a great career with Tech, and then he ends up playing in the NFL for 9 years.
Wow.
9 years.
Okay.
Then you have your next inductee in alphabetical order is Art Cantrell. Art Cantrell, also from LaRose. His senior year, he ends up going on to play at Biloxi High School. And the reason was he was 19 years old his senior year. And in Louisiana, you had a cutoff date. He missed the cutoff date by 6 days. He goes to Biloxi, does well, comes back to LSU, moves on from LSU, and just a terrific career there at LSU. Then you have Kenneth Dixon, who was a friend of mine. Kenneth is our only inductee going in posthumously, passed away last year, one of the greats in our area coaching basketball. Then, next inductee is that guy Leonard Hughes with Candies and Hughes drag racing. We're going to learn a lot about him along the way. Troy Johnson, who's a friend of both you and ours. Troy's a great guy. Troy played for 4 years in NFL, but had an extensive pro career and was fast. That, you know, his claim to fame is being fast. Yeah. And our final inductee is Ski Roussel from Thibodaux. Went to Thibodaux High and played for the Saints, actually, folks, for a couple of years. So it'll be a great time really showing the lives of these people.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to start isolating on each of these inductees this year, and it's going to be a great program and a great series. We'll be right back. Don't go away.